Daniel!
Simon! How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you, my friends.
Good to see you. Let's go for a walk and let's talk.
Let's talk.
So, how have you been?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good. It's been a busy few months, but yeah, all really well.
Good to hear. So, you left a market leader company and you have joined now a smaller firm. What's the thought behind that? What have we missed? Why are you doing this?
Well, I had 8 years with, as you mentioned, the market leader in staffing solutions around the world. So, 2,000 staff, 100 locations globally. Yeah. And I got to a point where, I'm one of 50 directors around the world. Yeah. And, the impact that I'm having, whilst it's quite big on my team, is, relatively minimal in the grand scheme of things. So I got to a point where I started to want, something else and, something a little bit different. And the opportunity came up to join WeConnect Energy, who are, on a very different scale to the business that I was with previously. Yeah. But the opportunity was massive. The ambition was absolutely huge. And the opportunity to have an impact on maybe a smaller bunch of people was significant, and it was something that I really wanted to do. So it's definitely not an easy decision to leave a company you've worked for such a long time. Yeah. But yeah, I decided to take it.
They were the same company you joined with when you came to Dubai, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Same company, various different positions throughout the organization over such a long period of time. Yeah.
And I'm sure, you thought about it well, because it's such decisions are a little bit of a jump in the dark. But if you don't try, you will not find out, right?
I got to a point in my decision making where I felt, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it either way. Yeah. But if it works, there's only a 50% chance I'll regret it. Yeah. So no, look, it's one of those things that I thought I want to do this, and I believe I can make a success out of it. Yeah. I did it in the full knowledge that it's the hard decision. Yeah. It's really tough. And it's probably the harder choice in life, but also sometimes the benefits outweigh that. Yeah. There's the potential benefits in 2 to 5 years time when we look at what we've taken the business from and to. Yeah. I really wanted to kind of sit there in 5 years time and be proud of that.
Yeah, of course. And if like you said, if you don't try it, you will never find out. You will always be what if.
You'll always wonder what if.
Yeah.
You'll always wonder what if, absolutely.
And okay, so it's exciting because a change brings energy, and I know you like things that excite you and bring energy and movement. One of the things that you like to do as well is public speaking.
Absolutely, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, one day you started, you came up on the crowd for the first time. How was that experience for the first time to be in front of a crowd, and how did you feel about it, and how did it go?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and it's something that I've thought about quite a bit recently, because I'm not a natural public speaker. Yeah. I don't know anyone that is a natural public speaker. Yeah. I think everybody is, ultimately terrified of speaking in public. I read something yesterday that most people rank public speaking as worse than death. Yeah. They would rather die than have to speak in public. Yeah. And that definitely wasn't me. Yeah. But I was somewhere on that on that sort of spectrum. But for me, the first time I stood up there, you get imposter syndrome. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. You stand up there, and I think I was presenting at a conference or something like that, and you sort of look and think everybody's just going to think what I'm saying is absolute nonsense.
These thoughts in your head,
they're in the back of your mind, and you think, I know I can deliver this presentation or this keynote or really, really well to the best of my abilities. Yeah. But you think, what if everyone's just looking at you thinking, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
When you sit up there, that's when it goes one way or another for people. People either look and they think, everyone's going to understand what I'm saying and everyone's going to believe what I'm saying, or they start to doubt themselves. And when they doubt themselves is when, you know, they go on a negative spiral.
Yeah, let's sit here for a bit.
So from my point of view, I went the right way. I sort of realized that people were paying for my expertise.
Yeah.
People wanted to hear what I had to say. And so from there, you know, you end up getting a lot of confidence from it. And the next time you go up and speak, you bring that mindset in. You know, people want to listen to what I have to say. They're here to hear what I have to say.
So how powerful was that to walk away from that experience, having this idea first about what would go wrong, and then having this first-hand experience of how it went?
It's really powerful. It's just essential to success.
Yeah.
Because if you go up there and you have a bad experience and you don't come away from it thinking, people listen to me, you know, then you're going to go into your next one slightly less confident.
Yeah.
And then you end up on this negative cycle. Whereas for me, you know, I probably had a positive experience, so I ended up on a positive cycle. So the next time you perform slightly better than you did the time before. So each time you get progressively sort of further up on this cycle of success. Whereas, you know, I hear of people who go and, you know, the first time they speak in public, it doesn't go right. Maybe some of their statistics are wrong. People question them.
Yeah.
They then start to question themselves. So it's really as much of your audience that impact how you can perform the next time than anything to do with your own individual performance.
Yeah, that's very fair assessment that you make. And in your experience, because you're such an expert in recruiting, and that's also what you talk about doing the public speaking, what are things that you see are common mistakes that are being made in the recruitment energy sector, and what are some tips that you can give people for the industry or people that are looking for jobs in that industry?
I mean, people who are looking for jobs, look, there's a massive talent shortage within renewable energy. Everybody knows about it and everybody's talking about it. The problem is people aren't doing anything about it. That's the big challenge that we have right now. I go to conferences all the time and people are scared about the next 5 years. People are scared that there won't be enough people to fill the jobs that are coming up, particularly in things like hydrogen and offshore wind, which is why in my new organization, they're the two markets that we've chosen to develop, because we know that in 3 to 5 years time, there are going to be problems. The challenge that we have is that it's much easier for people to just steal people from their competitors and pay them a little bit more in the short term. Much easier for companies to do that. The problem with that is eventually everyone ends up earning 3 times as much, and there's a really limited pool of people who then earn a fortune, and there's no kind of second tier. There's nobody else in the market coming through, and there's no development of talent, the next wave of talent that are coming through. So what we've always tried to do is partner with our clients and our organizations to develop that next wave of talent that are coming through the market. Unfortunately, that requires the support of our clients and our customers, and not everybody at the minute is willing to do that, because at the minute it is easier just to pay a 20% premium and take someone from the project that's being built down the road. What we need to be doing is we need to be helping people to transition from other industries into renewable energy. There needs to be incentives in order for companies to do this. And the incentive, unfortunately, can't just be in 5 years' time there's going to be a problem. Because if that's a problem in 5 years' time, people just, they kick the can down the road and we worry about it tomorrow. But there needs to be a real pain for people that aren't doing this now.
I like that a lot, that you're highlighting that taking from other companies is not a solution. That should be an influx of new people.
Yeah, I mean, it is a solution, and it does work. I think ultimately we shouldn't shy away from that fact that there needs to be a cross-pollination of experience and skills, and actually sometimes it's a real positive for the industry because you get someone who's always done something one way, who's worked for one company going to work for another company, and that knowledge and skill then gets cross-pollinated. But it can't be the only solution because ultimately we run out of people. We can't recycle the same people over and over and over again.
That's true. Let's go for a little walk. So as you are experiencing more and more life in the corporate world, I feel you are a person that is having the personality and the standard where you say, if I say something, I do it.
Absolutely.
Now, why is this so important, and how come this is not common not just in the industry, but in general in business?
That's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I think leading by example is something that is absolutely mandatory and essential for all leaders. And unfortunately, it just doesn't always seem to be the way that leaders run their businesses. A lot of the time people can get into a leadership or into a management position and they think, then I've made it, it's time to put my feet up. Yeah. And actually that's probably the time when you need to be working even harder. Mm-hmm. It's a really challenging time for for any leader is to realize that when you're managing a team, you've still got your own responsibilities and duties. Yeah. But you've also then got to take care of however many people are under you in your team. I've always wanted people to look at me and see me as an example, see me doing all the right things. So I'm never going to sit and ask a team to do something that I'm not doing myself or I wouldn't do myself. So I think people always need to bear that in mind when managing and leading a team is, are you a shining example or are you giving examples of what you did 10 years ago? Because if it's, well, I used to do this when I was in your position, that's not going to cut it. What you need to do is you need to be saying, let's all roll our sleeves up and get this job done together.
Yeah, I definitely see that creates more respect, and people see how the situation is as well. I mean, people are just they can cut through things, and I see as well that you really care about your team. And is that something you can learn, or is that something that is just coming along with the personality?
I think anyone can learn it. I don't believe there's anything that anyone can't learn. Now, there are some things that come natural to some people more than others. But I think you have to embrace this mindset of the servant leader. You have to embrace the mindset of, I am here to take these people on a journey. Yeah. I work in a commission-based organization, and there's been significant numbers of times during my career where I've had people on my team who are earning more money than me. And that has never once frustrated me or annoyed me or, made me think, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Actually, it makes me really happy. Yeah. Because commission is something that is, earned based on the one metric that really, really counts in an organization and in a business outside of values, which is financial. So you're performing extremely financially well and you deserve to be rewarded for it. But from my point of view, I've never really been in a situation where I've looked at someone, coming up and seen them as, a threat. Actually, I get a real buzz out of seeing someone progressing on their career and on their journey. That's
a great way to look at it, and I can imagine that a lot of people don't see it that way. It's actually true. It happens, and then good people leave organizations.
They do. They do.
It's a common thing that happens, but still, I also believe that if you treat people well, you give them the right environment, they develop, they grow, and they accelerate.
Absolutely, and I think there's nothing wrong with accepting that sometimes a better opportunity is going to come from an organization that's outside of your own.
Yeah.
And there's a Richard Branson quote, or everyone on LinkedIn says it's a Richard Branson quote. Nobody knows whether it actually is or not. But it's treat people good enough so they can leave.
Yeah.
Train people well enough so they can leave, but treat people good enough so they stay.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to learn from that. But ultimately, there's no shame in people working for your organization for quite a long period of time, and then going off and doing great things with their lives.
Yeah, I like that one, and I think that aspect is forgotten sometimes, that people are just humans as well, and employees are.
And everyone's got their story, and people's lives move on and change a lot during the sort of the period of time that they're working for you. Even if that could be over 2 years, it could be over 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't really matter. But ultimately, people's lives change and move on.
Yes. They do indeed. Let's go to your place, Daniel. You've invited me over for coffee. I'm excited to come to your place.
Let's go have coffee.
Yes. So Daniel, one of the things that I noticed from you is that you have a lovely family.
Yeah.
And I just was wondering, is this something that you always wanted? Having a family for yourself, children, or is this something that you in life progressively came on your path?
Yeah, I think it comes in later life. I probably never thought to myself, I'm desperate for a family.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to a point where, sort of early to mid 30s, there's something missing.
Yeah.
And you don't quite know what it is, but you know that, you just feel like there's something that's not there. And then the kids come along and you realize that it's them. But you don't realize that that's what's missing until it's there in your life. Now, having kids is hard. I think we need to be 100% honest on that.
Yeah.
It is really, really difficult, particularly when you're both working. Both parents are working.
Yeah.
And particularly when they're so young.
Yeah.
I've definitely got to a point now where my kids are 3 and 2. So my oldest is nearly 4 years old, and it's starting to settle down and get a bit more, just get a bit easier. They play together a little bit more now, but still it's really, really tough. But I never, as a probably mid-20s person, thought I want to be a dad. It's something that really just sort of creeps up on you.
Yeah. And you pointed something out, which I think is very relevant, like for two working parents to have young children and to still try to do well in your career, to balance that all. That's I think partially the hard part as well from parenthood.
Yeah, balancing is really difficult, and I think just from an hour's perspective, the amount of hours that you've got to put into a job, it's really challenging as a parent. There's times when you get criticized for leaving at 5:30 on the dot, but you want to leave at 5:30 on the dot because your kids go to bed at 7 o'clock. So if you get home at 6, then you only get an hour with them. But there's also times when I've been logging back online at 8 o'clock, and that was a significant part of my last job. Was leave work on time. Probably have people look at me thinking he's leaving work on time all the time, but then they never really see the sort of online from 8 until 9:30 most nights.
Yeah, and then you need focus and attention for your work to make it also work. Sometimes that's just really needed, but then that you don't want to take it too much away from your children, and then feel a little bit that guilt when that happens too often. But at the same time, you also trying to accelerate your future for later, for that benefit as well.
It's a big balancing act, and I think the one thing that people don't talk about or reference very much is the kind of the different perspective and value add that a parent can have on a work point of view and a work perspective. I think a lot of the time it's just considered as hours worked equals results, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think sometimes, particularly if you've got conflicting attitudes and mindsets, that can really help you to get to a consensus sooner. So, there's different types of teams, and I think teams that are formed of people who are identical and carbon copies and exactly the same of each other will never really perform as well as a team of like a variety of people from a variety of different backgrounds. And this is one thing that I was really proud of in my team in my last position, the 20 people I was talking about earlier. There were 9 different nationalities, all different ages from, sort of like mid-40s down to early 20s. And I think, the kind of the difference of cultures and attitudes that came as a result of that really helped us to be a really high performing team. I look at some other teams that are carbon copies of each other, and people all from the same background, all have the same mindset, and leaders sometimes try and just mirror themselves in the people that they hire. Whereas for me, that's never really been the case. It's always been, let's try and get a mix and a variety of as many people as possible that are going to challenge me.
Yeah. Oh, that is a very good point you're touching on, and Dubai is diverse, a very great place. You can see it as well if you go to drop off your kids at school or nursery, and you see the amount of children in class, or you go to the supermarket. No matter where you go, you see a variety of demographics. Why not having also a variety of demographics in your company, in your team?
Yeah, I think we need to, and you see a lot of companies in this part of the world that are just one nationality. And I think they're missing a trick. And the MOHRE are now starting to cut down on that as well. They want diversity in the workforce. They don't want companies that are just all the same passports. But people need to understand that that's not something that's coming from the government and you have to follow. There's actually a real benefit to that.
There is, and to have different perspectives means also you will uplift each other.
Yeah.
Somebody will come in with a tip of an advice. Somebody will say something. Somebody will disagree, or people will agree when it's when there's something really common and makes sense. So I think that's a great thing to have and something to cherish.
Absolutely.
One thing that I was curious about asking you, Daniel, is that you work now quite some time in Dubai, but once upon a time you were back in the UK, and your father has his own company. Your brother has taken over your father's company. Why is Daniel not in the company? What happened there?
I left the UK around 12 years ago, and I basically had my first job in recruitment. Worked in London for a couple of years, and I'd spent the last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years before then just summer hopping. I'd always had I'd not experienced the British winter for a long time. And the weather really got me down in the UK. So I got to a point where I thought, what, I want to go and live overseas, and that's my goal for my career. And I jumped on a plane and moved to Western Australia when I was 26, and then 4 years later ended up in Dubai, and I've been here for 8 years, and I think the amount of time that I've spent outside the UK now really means that all my business network is here, all my contacts are here, what I know as an industry is the energy industry, and I just think it would be really, really difficult for me to go back to working in Yorkshire in the UK. I think the pace of work and the pace of life would be very different. But I do look at my brother working in the family business, and I do sort of feel a little bit of I don't want to say jealousy because that's the wrong word, but I do feel a little bit of like maybe I should have gone and done that. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I look at the life that I built here in the Middle East, and I look at the opportunities that present us here in Dubai, and I'm really, really happy that of where I am.
Yeah. And what did your father do? What is the company that your brother took over?
He was a mechanical engineer, so they run a management consultancy on lean manufacturing and manufacturing excellence. So they support businesses in the Yorkshire area to essentially get more efficient in their manufacturing processes. So they go in and support a vast number of different clients, and do projects that are sometimes funded by the government, sometimes not, mm-hmm. to help develop manufacturing in the Yorkshire area.
Okay, it's a thing, to leave and to pack your bags and to go away from security. I mean, my family also has the family business back home, so I know how it is to walk away from that. But you also mentioned that you like the different environment, different weather. You just felt this was not for you. And going to Australia, it's a sunny country as well, right? Maybe that played into your decision as well to come to both Australia and Dubai.
Yeah, absolutely. And the weather has always been a significant part of my decision-making process. And I spent the last 2 weeks in Scotland, in the UK, in January, and it was cold. Yeah. And I really felt it. I felt like it affected a lot of things, energy levels, and not necessarily mood, because I was happy to be there, but definitely the amount that you've got to give, I think, is particularly for me, quite a bit lower in a colder climate.
It is. I remember having a beer, not last December, but December before, in the Netherlands with a group of people that I knew, that I grew up with, and one of them has a travel company, and he travels a lot. And he was like, guys, between like end of October till like end of April, nothing happens here in the Netherlands. Like nobody has barbecue, nobody calls each other over. Yeah. It's like empty. It's like a hole.
You kind of go and hibernate for the winter. Yeah.
He's like, why are people hiding? He said, that's the time I like to be away, specifically that. And I was thinking about that. That struck me because I started to reflect back on my time as well, living in the Netherlands, in a colder environment, rainy, especially in the winter, and then compare that with Dubai, where the sun is shining every day. I mean, it can get a little bit hot sometimes, but it's definitely pleasant.
I mean, we have the summer where you basically don't go out for 3 months, and the Netherlands maybe has the winter where you don't go out for 3 months. Yeah. But I think as Dubai develops as a location for people to come on holiday year round, the amount of things that there are to do in the summer inevitably is going to increase.
So Daniel, one of the other things I want to touch on was that you have been a top athlete, or an athlete on a high level when you were younger, if I may say it like that.
Yeah, we shouldn't shy away from that fact. We're all clocking up a few miles.
So, a couple of questions I wanted to ask you about that. Like, first of all, for the audience that is listening, like, what kind of athlete were you? How did you transition into the corporate world? And how do you feel? And do you miss it?
Yeah, so I was a triathlete. So I swam from being, very young, sort of 5 and 6 years old. And I went up to be part of a British triathlon team, and then moved on to represent myself in half Ironman competitions. And I got to a point where I was definitely in the top sort of 50 in the world. So I was never sort of Olympic champion level, but definitely had a solid career out of it. And yeah, of course, I think it definitely does change your perception and mindset on a lot of things. And I think a lot of people who come from a sporting background, they ultimately do well in the business world because they have a performance mindset. And I think a performance mindset is something that is really well desired and sought after in the business world. Do I miss it? Yeah, I mean, I miss the lifestyle of just training out in the sun a lot of the time, and almost like the simple life of you wake up, you do your training, you eat some food, you go to bed, and you think about the next day. But I've moved on quite well into the corporate world since then. Again, my sporting background helped me to get my first job in recruitment in London. So that has been something that I'm thankful for. But I'm really happy with the journey of the last sort of 15 years of working in the recruitment industry and the opportunities that's afforded to me. I think if I look at where I would have been if I'd have stayed for another 4 or 5 years in sport, it would be very, very difficult to then catch up to where I wanted to be.
So how did you get your first job when you were still an athlete?
It's a long story.
We have time.
I was in South Africa training, and I was just really, really tired. So there was a race that was in Abu Dhabi. The Abu Dhabi race, I didn't perform as well as I felt I should have done. And, I got to a point where I needed to have some time out of the business. And I got to a point where I thought, if I take 6 months out, financially it's going to be very difficult for me to catch up. And it will also be, then, the next year is going to be difficult for me to catch up. So it just got to a point where I thought, maybe now's the time to move on and do something else. I uploaded my CV to a few job boards and things like that. And recruitment is the one thing that seemed to stick. I got a lot of calls from recruitment companies, and I sort of chose the one that I felt best matched where I wanted to go in my career. And London was the place I wanted to be. A lot of my friends were working down in London, and the rest is history, really.
Okay, and that must have been a moment to struggle in what was then your professional career, and to have a realization like, is this the path forward?
Yeah, and I also think I was starting to get to a point where I needed something else. Yeah, I needed more of just something that was different to what I'd done for the last 10 to 15 years. And a job was kind of where I wanted to go. And a lot of my friends, as I said, were in London. They all seemed to be doing really well in their careers, and it seemed like that was the place that I wanted to be as well.
And London is a great city to live in and to explore, but it's very big, and like you said, it's not the warmest place. And you work long hours and the tubes and all that.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Australia from London?
I worked with somebody who had moved to Western Australia, and they just called me on the right day. I remember it was walking to the train station in London, and it was November, 7 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, snow driving down at me, and the guy phoned me and said, "Do you fancy giving Australia a go? The weather's great over here, and there's big opportunities." The exchange rate was quite good at the minute, so when you compared an Australian dollar salary back to what I was earning in pounds, I'm like, oh, significantly better. You never consider cost of living in these things. You never consider how much it's actually going to cost you to be there. And yeah, there wasn't really much more to it than that. I remember sort of thinking, yeah, I'll see if it's a go, and then it sounds like a good opportunity. I've never been to Australia before, but it seemed like the type of place that I would like.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a couple of months later, got an offer, jumped on a plane, and there I was.
Off you go. And at that time, you were still your wife was with you, right?
Yes, we weren't married at this stage. Actually, we'd only met a few months before moving to Australia. So
what's the story there? How did you convince her? Did she come along to Australia? And if so, how did you convince her?
I mean, initially it was going to be just me going.
Yeah.
And we just started dating, and it seemed like it was going pretty well. So yeah, it just came up in conversation one day, and I said, look, I think I'm not going to ask you to come with me, but if you wanted to come with me, I think it would be really easy to sort things out, and I'd love you to be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, about a month later, she told me, yeah, I'm going to come and give it a go. And wow. I think from her point of view, she was younger than me, maybe sort of 23, 24, maybe even younger. And it was kind of like, if I go there and it's not the right thing to do, I'll just jump on a plane and come back. Nothing lost.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good mindset to have.
Yeah. It is indeed, but still it's still a jump in the dark for her as well, and to do it based on somebody she met only a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But it was a right decision.
Ultimately, it was the right decision. Yeah. Well, you'd have to ask her that. It seems like the right decision. 12 years later and 2 kids. And,
exactly. I mean, she could have also got on a plane and went back. And but yeah, that's. And what is the story behind moving from Australia then towards Dubai?
I got to the end of 3 years in Australia, and there was a decision to make. Do we stay in Australia and get permanent residency?
Okay.
Or do we go somewhere else and do something else? If we decided to stay and get permanent residency, that's another 2 years that we're in Australia. You can't then make that decision and then leave, or you can do, but ultimately it's you've missed out then on an opportunity. So the oil industry in Australia was struggling a bit in 2015, and we decided to just see if we could get an opportunity in Dubai.
Yeah.
And I got in contact with my previous employer, and so the process again went relatively smoothly. They sort of put an offer out. We put a deadline of December. I think in the November I got the offer, and it just kind of made sense to move. Now, it was a challenging decision to leave Australia because we liked living in Australia. We had lots of friends there, and we'd sort of integrated quite well into things. But having known how the Middle East worked, I much preferred working in the Middle East than working in Australia. I think the business culture here is just really, really open and conducive to doing business. And I always found it a bit of a struggle to do sales in Australia. It was not a struggle, but it was more difficult to do a sales job in Australia.
So how did you find out it was better in Dubai? Or
just by being here. So okay. That's with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
But I'd done quite a lot of work in the Middle East in my first job in London. So we did a lot of Middle East recruitment. So I suspected. But yeah, I never really found that out until I was on the ground here.
Okay. It was a good gut feeling.
It was a good gut feeling, yeah. But also I think life has got a lot easier in the 8 years that I've been living here. I mean, you've been here longer than me, so you can attest to that over the last 8 years, life in the Middle East has definitely got a lot more, things have just got a lot easier.
Yeah, no, definitely there's been positive changes, and for the better of everybody. And I think also I was just discussing it with my wife as well. Like before, they needed to give these packages to convince people to come to Dubai. Like, you know, come here, we give you this, and this.
Yeah.
And now it's like people are queuing up to come here.
Yeah, there's a lot more people who actually are just here or want to live here.
Yeah.
So, you know, the expat package that, you know, the hardship allowances that people got originally just don't exist anymore. And it's probably the same with places like Saudi as well now. You know, Saudi, if you to go there, you used to need an absolute premium to be there. But now, you know, it's definitely coming down.
Yeah.
Because it's a much more livable place. You know, people actually want to live there. There's nice restaurants, there's things to do. Still can't have a beer.
Yeah.
But, you know, to some people that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot of things are happening to make the country much more appealing for expats to live.
Yeah, I was speaking with one person that is responsible for setting up freeholds in Saudi, and he was explaining that that's the direction the country wants to go. Wages will go down if it's more livable as well. But I did ask him a question, like, is your family living with you or abroad? He's like, abroad.
They'll be living in Arabian ranches. Everyone knows that.
Oh, I was like, okay, maybe lead by example first. But you have definitely a good point there, that wages do correlate the pleasantness as well of the area. Talking about pleasantness, I think we have arrived at your place.
Are we going in for a coffee?
Yes, let's do it. Let's go. The house is full, right? Full of children.
Full of children. I don't know what awaits us in here, by the way, so it's
a surprise.
Come on in.
Thank you. What a lovely place you have, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Come on in. Let's have a seat.
Yeah, so the kids are in nursery and school.
Yeah, so nursery and school today.
So Daniel, thank you for inviting me to your home.
You're very welcome. Have some coffee.
Thank you. And obviously this house is filled with life and in your life in general. Who are the most important people in your life and why?
Yeah, I have my my wife and my two daughters who stay here with me, and that's our family over here. That's our network.
Mm-hmm. And you have your family back home as well, your parents. Are you in touch with them a lot, or how is that being an expat being away?
Yeah, so I have my my mum, my dad, my grandma who's 93, and my brother and his wife and two kids. So we're in relatively close contact. I wouldn't say we're in contact every single day, but I don't think I would have been even if I lived back in England. So yeah, we talk a lot. Whenever I'm back in the UK for work, I always make a point of making sure I go up and see everybody. And I actually just got back a few days ago from a week in Scotland for work, and then a couple of days back down in Yorkshire with my family.
Yeah, and you told me, I think you shared that you had 2 days, and one you spent with your parents and the other one with your grandmother who's 93.
Yeah, I mean it was all a bit a bit of a mix mash of everything really. So I stayed with my parents. We went to go see my grandmother as well, and my brother and his family came up. So yeah, everything overlapped, which was nice.
Nice to hear. And just out of curiosity, like your best friends, what would they say about Daniel if they would describe Daniel? What do you think they would say?
That's a really interesting one. I think, a lot of my friends are quite similar to me in a sense. So, I've come from that same background within sport. So I think, driven and motivated is one thing. They'd probably give you some negative stuff as well. You'll have to go to them for that. But look, I think, from my point of view, yeah, everyone always sees I'm on a bit of a mission. I'm never sort of sitting still and just sort of sitting back and relaxing. It's always looking at the next the next project, the next thing to do. And I would like to think that people would look and say that I've made a pretty good go of coming out to the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. And for our viewers out there, what is the next thing for Daniel? What can we expect?
This year is all about building up WeConnect Energy's low carbon and renewables division. That's my new company that I've just joined, and I think everything that I do this year is going to be focused around how can we build that business as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, going from a bigger organization to a much smaller privately owned company is something that comes with a lot of pressure, and it's something that I've taken quite seriously in terms of my dedication towards this. So I think that's going to be the big thing for this year is going out and seeing how quickly we can build this up, how quickly we can build a really high performing team and build a business that in that sort of 3 to 5 years time we look back and say, wow, I can't believe that came from where it came from.
Well, an exciting journey you had and you still have ahead of you, Daniel. I want to thank you so much for dedicating your time to come as a guest again, because this is our second time we're sitting down. Just really grateful and thank you.
Thank you.